According to Australian government announcements, Australia will spend $2.76 billion to advance construction of a shipyard to support nuclear-powered submarines under the 2021 AUKUS Defence Pact with the US and Britain. The agreement is Australia's largest ever defence investment. According to Taiwan's Foreign Minister Ling Chia-lung, China is the real threat to regional security and is hypocritically claiming to defend UN principles of peace in response to remarks by Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi at the Munich Security Conference, as Wang Yi warned that some countries are trying to split Taiwan from China. Now we start this hour with Russia and Ukraine. Russian presidential spokesperson Dmitry Peskov has stressed that the importance of remembering the West's role in the 2014 bloody coup in Ukraine, which he said was orchestrated by Western countries including the US, UK, France, and Germany, has emphasized that these nations directly participated in the violent overthrow of Ukraine's government, which led to significant political upheaval in Eastern Europe. Peskov's comments come amid heightened tensions between Russia and Ukraine, as well as Western powers, with Russia continuing to push its narrative of Western interference in Ukraine's internal affairs. Meanwhile, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Galuzin has said that Russia's retaliatory actions following the Kyiv regime's attack on the residence of Russian President Vladimir Putin in the Novgorod region inflicted serious damage on military facilities in Ukraine. Now we welcome Professor Nohan Gunratna. He's an international affairs expert, joins us live from Singapore. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, looking at this, why is a Russian presidential spokesperson bringing back the West's role, or emphasizing the West's role in the 2014 coup in Ukraine?
Asuma, what happened was that the European countries worked together to build a very strong military presence on the European side of the Russian border. And this happened because there was a change of government in Ukraine. So what the Russians are saying is that there must be a resolution to the NATO and EU buildup of capabilities and forces that threatens Russia, because if there is a presence of heavy military equipment and capabilities, certainly the Russians will feel that they are under siege. So the Russians are constantly reminding that this is a fight between Russia and Europe, Russia and the West. So even if the Ukrainian issue is resolved, it is no resolution to what the Russians are doing at this point in the West, especially in Europe, what you call fighting below the threshold of open war. So what is key is for there to be a comprehensive settlement between Europe and Russia, not just addressing the challenge in Ukraine.
So building on that, why is, if this is all about Russia, not all, but partly about Russia and the West, so why are they not, why is Europe not even in the negotiating table?
Unless Europe is brought to the negotiating table, the bigger conflict between Russia and the West, Russia and Europe, will not end. But Trump is thinking rightly of resolving the Ukraine-Russia conflict in the first phase of a very long process of negotiations. And at this point, it has not been possible even to resolve this in a comprehensive way. So I think that the coming talks will really help to address some of these issues, because Russia would have never invaded Ukraine unless it really perceived that there was a big threat to Russia's stability and security, and I think every Western country should take that into consideration, especially the Ukrainian government.
How do you analyze the current trust level between Russia and US and Russia and UK, France and Germany, these countries that the spokesperson of Putin has stated, directly referred to?
The European countries and Russia, the trust has been disrupted. Trump put in trust, and that is why they agreed to meet, and that is why I think that US can play a very important role to resolve the heightening of the conflict between Russia and Europe. At this point, although we are all focused on Ukraine, every day there are cyber attacks by the Russians against European countries. And there are other forms of attacks, such as espionage, that target European countries. So I think that there must be a greater resolution to this dispute between Europe and Russia. And that is why the Russian spokesperson referred to France, to Britain, and to other countries in Europe, because they see that this is a European plot against Russia. The war in Ukraine, they don't only say that this is a affair between Ukraine and Russia. This is a bigger issue that needs to be resolved.
Yes, and last but not least, we saw a lot of statements yesterday from Munich coming in, especially European leaders saying that they need to ramp up, or they need to be prepared for more, in case of more Russia's army attacking them, etc. So how do you think, how prepared are they right now, and how long do you think it would take for them to make up for these lost time? Now that they lag behind, in terms of military power, they lag behind Russia, China, and US.
European budget is 1.5. European budget for defense is 1.5 of their GDP, and that is why Trump wants the Europeans to have a budget at least of 5% for defense, because US has been supporting Europe. So Trump wants Europeans to be independent and build capabilities so that US, American taxpayers will not be funding the defense of Europe. So I believe that now the Europeans, both Britain and continental Europeans, they have started to ramp up their defense military, what you call the military industrial complex, meaning that Europe will emerge as a very powerful entity in the coming decade, and they will be able to, in many ways, fight the Russian threat.
Thank you very much, Professor, for highlighting that and sharing that insight with us. Please stay with us as we come back to you. Now, United Nations Secretary General António Guterres has said that the carnage in Sudan is totally intolerable in the 21st century. Guterres has added that he hopes to continue working with key factors to put effective pressure for an immediate ceasefire. Let's listen into what António Guterres has shared.
In a carnage in Sudan that is totally intolerable in the 21st century. We have been very actively engaged towards the African Union, together with the African Union, with the Arab League, with the Quad, and with other key actors, in order to put effective pressure for an immediate ceasefire.
Now we welcome back Professor Rohan Gunratna. He's joining us live from Singapore. Thank you very much, Professor, for staying with us. Now, as we see, war in Sudan continues, and it's not the talks, not mediation efforts between Sudanese RSF forces and also the Sudanese government. It's also lacking behind, and there's the momentum which seemed to have had last year. It seems like it's no longer there. Who needs to put more pressure on this war to end? What can United Nations do more?
the UN Secretary General made that statement that you just aired because 6,000 people were killed in the last 3 days in fighting between the Sudanese military and what you call the Rapid Support Force, the opposing party in Sudan. It is the highest death toll of any battlefield in the ongoing conflicts around the world. And I think the UN Secretary General's statement should be taken seriously. But the UN itself can do very little because they do not have the kind of military capabilities to stop the fighting. UN is an organization where every country participates, but they are not willing to commit the type of capabilities to enforce peace in Sudan. So I think that there are other countries that can do it. I think primarily the African countries should take the lead, because at this point the African leaders can do much more to restore stability in Africa, including in Sudan. If the violence continues in Sudan, it will spread greater instability in Africa as a whole. So I think the UN Secretary General's statement should be considered by every African leader so that they can have an Africa-wide strategy to restore peace and stability.
Yes, 100%. Thank you for sharing that powerful message with us. With that, I'd like to thank Professor Gunratna for sharing that. Thank you very much. We have a breaking news coming in from Iran. Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Majid Takht Ravanchi has recently, in an interview, said that Iran is ready to compromise on its nuclear program if the U.S. agrees to lift sanctions. He has emphasized that the U.S. must prove its sincerity in the ongoing talks, with the next round set for Geneva. According to reports, Iran has offered to dilute its enriched uranium, but will not discuss its missile program. Takht Ravanchi has also stated that zero enrichment demands are no longer on the table. Now we move on to Australia. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has announced a $2.76 Australian billion investment to build a shipyard in Osborne, city of South Australia. This plan is a part of the AUKUS Defence Pact with the US and UK. Prime Minister Albanese has announced that the shipyard will help in building nuclear-powered submarines, creating almost 10,000 employment opportunities. According to reports, the total cost of the project is expected to around 30 billion Australian dollars over the coming decades. Albanese has highlighted that the project will enhance national security and drive economic growth. Reports suggest that the agreement will also see Virginia-class submarines based in Australia starting in 2027, with a new class of nuclear-powered submarines being developed.
We'll see almost 10,000 jobs created to design and build the yard and to build nuclear-powered submarines in South Australia. Today we're announcing that my government will contribute as a down payment $3.9 billion for this project, making an enormous difference. We know that the estimation is that there'll be $30 billion invested here in Adelaide, in South Australia. Well, we're very confident, and I've sat down with President Trump in person, as you will have seen, and had a number of discussions with the President, but other members of the administration as well. This is in the interests of the United States, in the interests of the UK, and in the interests of Australia. And that is why this is a project that is progressing in accordance with not just the principles, but the plan of action which we are rolling out.
Now we welcome retired Major General Gigi Dividi. He's a war veteran and Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General.
Thank you, Suma. Always a pleasure.
Same here. Now, looking at this, from a strategic point of view, can you tell us how transformative is this nuclear-powered submarines be for Australia's deterrence capability? And also, with US commanded submarines set to be based in Australia from 2027, what challenges might arise, or how might this change the region?
Well, Suma, first and foremost, we need to understand as to what's the rationale behind all this. Basically, this is to checkmate the Chinese influence in the Indo-Pacific region. And for the information of the viewers today, China numerically has the largest navy in the world. It has more than 350 naval ships, and they plan to raise these figures to 450. So numerically, the Chinese Navy today is the biggest navy in the world, and also backed up with the Coast Guard. It has a very formidable Coast Guard to complement the naval power. So now this transformative strategic initiative is primarily aimed to checkmate the Chinese influence in Indo-Pacific. As you know, the latest national security strategy of US, which have been signed by President Trump, it makes very categorical that the Chinese influence will be checked in the area of interest of the US, and that is especially in the Western Pacific. Now, this AUKUS deal was signed between Australia, United Kingdom and US in 2021. This deal is that there will be nuclear powered submarine but conventionally armed. This needs to be understood that nuclear powered submarine can be armed with nuclear weapons or with conventional weapons. So this deal basically is to give capability to Australia to have nuclear powered submarine but conventionally armed. And there are only 6 countries in the world which have these submarines which are powered by the nuclear reactors. Now this nuclear powered submarine gives them tremendous capability to operate underwater for a very long duration, and that means that they have a tremendous strategic outreach and operational outreach. Now this agreement that has been signed basically is to empower the Australia to have the formidable naval capability. And along with that, you rightly mentioned that America will be selling 3 Virginia class submarines to Australia, and they'll be based in Australia. And as it is, American soldiers, almost 2,500 American soldiers also are based in Australia. So all this goes on to show that the America, UK, Australia, they come together to ensure that they have a joint capability in Indo-Pacific and to checkmate the Chinese influence in this region.
Right.
Asuma.
Thank you for highlighting that. And also, Major General, now with Prime Minister Anthony Albanese describing this, multi-billion-dollar investment as a down payment, given that AUKUS is in itself $368 billion multi-decade commitment, how sustainable is this in terms of political support within Australia? Especially, critics have already emerged saying that there's budget deficits, there's lack of transparency, and now that the West's alignment, or the traditional allies of US, their trust, as yesterday we were talking, their trust to, although interdependent, their trust towards US is deteriorating or shaky. Can Australia maintain this trust and this huge investment in this?
Well, Suma, you have to always balance out your defense with the economic growth and the economic interest. So this has to be a fine balance. Well, there is always the argument on when the accretion of budget is there, means definitely it has a impingement on the economic side, because after all, the finances are limited. But then Australia has to balance itself as far as defense capability is concerned, especially as I mentioned that there is a growing threat from China. And imagine today we are looking at only China, but then China has very strong ties with Russia, and Russia also has a formidable Western fleet. So when these two get combined together, that will be a very major threat to Australia and the other countries like South Korea, Japan, which are all willy-nilly are the allies in the Quad. So the point is that yes, there is a shift in the US policy as far as the providing security resources to Europe and even to Australia, because now the policy of President Trump is that the European nations and Australia and other, even in South Korea, Japan, they must increase the defense budget and also share the greater load of the security challenges. So I think Australia has no choice but to be more self-reliant in its capability, while help is there from America, from UK, but the funding has to be largely by the Australian themselves. While the technology will come from UK and USA, but the funding has to come from the Australian themselves, and that's why this major financial commitment has been made by Prime Minister Albanese, because until you fund the project, it won't move forward. And they have certain timelines that by next 3 to 4 years, these submarines must be operational, and they should add to the capability of the Australian Navy. So I think this has to be balanced out. There's always opposition to the raising of the defense spending, but I think national security overrides these considerations, and therefore I think Prime Minister Albanese is right that these funds have to be made available in case they want to have self-reliance and their own security, especially in the Indo-Pacific, with the kind of challenges that are emerging, especially from China. Suma.
Right. And last but not least, how will Australian government or Prime Minister Albanese be able to successfully balance this protecting their sovereignty, but also investing into this AUKUS pact in case of future deterrence from China, but like you rightfully mentioned, in case there's more Russia's involvement in the future in the area?
Well, Asuma, every nation has to calculate or evaluate its threat perceptions, and accordingly, you have to earmark funds for your security. But today we are living in the world which is very, very uncertain, and where the security challenges are paramount. And case in point is what is going on in Ukraine. After all, both China and Russia are very aggressive as far as their global designs are concerned. So I think these new developments have to be factored and taken into consideration when Australia evaluates its own threat perception. And I think there has to be consensus among the ruling and the political parties that at the end of the day, if country is not secure, it cannot be prosperous. So that is the defining line, Asuma.
With that, I'd like to thank Major General G.T. Dwivedi for joining us and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we move on to U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is set to begin a 2-day trip to bolster ties with Slovakia and Hungary, whose conservative leaders often are at odds with other European Union countries. They have warm ties with President Donald Trump. However, Rubio will be discussing energy cooperation and bilateral issues, including NATO commitments. Rubio has said that these are countries that are very strong with U.S., very cooperative with the United States. They work closely with U.S., and it's a good opportunity to go see them, and two countries he has never been in. Rubio, who is his dual role, also serves as Trump's national security advisor, will meet in Bratislava with Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico, who visited Trump in Florida last month. Now we move on to India. India is setting the stage for an ambitious artificial intelligence revolution with plans to build a massive new data city that will power the country's digital future. Nara Lokesh, the Information Technology Minister for Andhra Pradesh, has shared insights into the project, emphasizing that AI is now an undeniable force shaping the future. The new city will be located in Visakhapatnam, a coastal city in Andhra Pradesh, and is designed to foster a cutting-edge hub for data, computer, and AI infrastructure. Lokesh has highlighted the broader vision behind the project, which goes beyond just data centers and includes multi-layered developments, aims to create a vibrant ecosystem, positioning the region as a global leader in AI innovation. The project is part of India's broader push to bridge the technological gap with global leaders like the US and China, focusing on creating a robust AI ecosystem that will drive future growth and innovation across various sectors.
See, AI is here. And my point is that every industrial revolution has always created more jobs than it has displaced. But it has created those jobs in countries that have embraced the industrial revolution. So the AI revolution is here, no second thoughts about it. And as a nation, and more so as a state, we have taken a stand that we're going to embrace it. We can create a hub for data compute and AI capacity in the state of Andhra Pradesh. And this is just the beginning. For me, it's not just about the data center. Now I'm going and chasing the companies that actually make those servers that go sit in those data centers. The companies that make the entire air conditioning, the water cooling system, the whole 9 yards. I believe in building the entire ecosystem that will make Andhra Pradesh more vibrant and positions itself really well in terms of future opportunities in this particular ecosystem. The data city is going to come in one ecosystem. And what do I mean by one ecosystem? It's a 100-kilometer radius. So I'm a firm believer of ecosystems. I don't believe that we should pepper it across the state.
Now we move on to Vietnam. Vietnam has officially granted SpaceX the approval to launch its Starlink satellite internet service in the country. As reported by state media, the Ministry of Science and Technology has issued a license to Starlink's local unit to provide both fixed and mobile internet services using satellites, along with licenses for radio frequencies and equipment. This approval comes just before Vietnam's top leader To Lam is expected to visit the United States next week. SpaceX had previously been allowed to operate Starlink on a trial basis, but the exact launch date remains unclear. The two countries are also in the midst of trade negotiations after the US imposed tariffs on Vietnamese goods last year. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.
In the midst of death, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.
Hello and welcome. I'm Sumi Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he hopes US-brokered talks in Geneva next week are substantive, but adds Ukraine is too often asked to make concessions. He accuses Moscow of delaying progress by changing its lead negotiator as US, Russian, and Ukrainian delegations prepare to meet in Switzerland. The US Justice Department sends lawmakers a legally required letter outlining redactions in files linked to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The letter lists high-profile names referenced in the records, but without detailing the context, including individuals who may have had no direct contact with Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell. Britain and European allies say Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny is killed with a poison linked to dart frog toxin 2 years after his death in a Siberian prison. UK Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper says only the Russian government has the means and motive, while Moscow dismisses the claim as an information campaign. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen says she believes President Donald Trump still wants to own Greenland, despite recently toning down his threats. Speaking in Munich, she stresses Greenland is not for sale as security tensions between Copenhagen and Washington continue. Iranian opposition figure Reza Pahlavi says U.S. military intervention could save lives and urges President Donald Trump not to spend too long negotiating. A nuclear deal with Tehran, the exiled son of Iran's former Shah, tells Reuters he believes the clerical government is nearing collapse and says attack could accelerate its fall. A media review finds judges have ruled more than 4,400 times since October that the Trump administration has unlawfully detaining immigrants. Despite the sweeping legal rebuke, the government continues to hold some detainees even after courts declare the policy illegal. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte says Russia has suffered around 65,000 troop losses in the past 2 months of fighting Ukraine. Speaking in Munich, he adds the alliance is strong enough that Moscow would not currently dare to attack NATO. President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu agree at the White House to work to cut Iran's oil exports to China, according to media reports. A senior U.S. official says the two leaders plan to apply maximum pressure to curb Tehran's energy sales. Now we start this hour with Munich. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has received the Ewald von Kleist Award during the Munich Security Conference in a ceremony held at the historic residence of the former Bavarian kings in Munich, Germany. The award was presented by Bavarian State Premier Markus Söder, MSC Chairman Wolfgang Ischinger, and Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, who later spoke at a news conference. At the same time, Volodymyr Zelensky also says that he's surprised that Russia had decided to change the leadership of its negotiating team for peace talks in Geneva next week, a move he said was designed to postpone any decisions. This comes after Russia said its delegation to Geneva would be led by Putin's advisor Vladimir Medinsky, a change from negotiations in Abu Dhabi, at which Russia's team was led by military intelligence chief Igor Kostyukov. Now we welcome Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at Hudson Institute, joins us live from Tokyo. Thank you very much, Dr. Nagao, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now looking at this, Russia has changed their delegation, and you also what do you think this suggests? Why do you think they have changed their delegation in this timing in particular?
There's a possibility that negotiation hasn't going well, and that's why they change the leadership of the negotiation is reason on surface, I guess. But at the same time, it is true that what Zelensky said, this is a tactics to delay the negotiation, and there's a possibility it is true because last 1 year, Russia tried to postpone the agreement repeatedly. So there is a high possibility that Russia's strategic purpose of this negotiation is delaying the sanction against Russia, not seeking the real ceasefire. Because view from Russia, still this is not a war, this is special military operation against the region which should belong to Russia. So that's why Russia still says Ukraine is not independent country. So, and they continue this special military operation, because if Russia say this is a war against other nation, the sovereign country. So that is Russia do not want to say. So if so, the ceasefire and fix the borderline itself is not Russia's interest. So that's why if the negotiation has agreed and the ceasefire has happened, in this case, Russia cannot expand territory in Ukraine, and this is not Russia's interest, President Putin think. So that's why the many tactics they are using to delay the negotiation is their interest. That is logical, I believe.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nagao, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you. Let's now listen into what President Zelensky has shared after receiving the award.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very proud to be here, and great honor for me, and very proud to have such friends and to be the president of Ukraine, of our people, our great nation. And thanks, Germany, really, and your people who are supporting us from the very beginning of full-scale war. We understand, and we are very so thankful that you are the biggest donators, your country. You helped us a lot. A lot of first steps been done by Germany and other partners, by Europe, but Germany made a great step.
Now we welcome back Dr. Satoru Nagao from Tokyo. Thank you very much, Dr. Nagao, for staying with us. As you know, we saw Zelensky receive this award. He has highlighted how important Germany's support has been for Ukraine. What is Germany's role for Ukraine before and also right now?
View from the location, the view from the power, Germany is leading country in Europe now. Because, of course, the United States and US lead NATO is the most important, but at the same time, currently, United States want to take distance from the Ukraine issue a little bit because they want to focusing on Indo-Pacific against China, or most importantly, the American continent is interest area as a priority. So that's why the Europe issue should be taken charge by the Europe, and in this case, which country can lead Europe? Some countries exist, but the German's role is very important because of the size of the economy, because of the central location, and because of the military potential. So that's why the view from the Ukraine. If the U.S. reduce the support more, in this case, Ukraine should rely on. In this case, Germany's leadership is very important in this region. So ask Germany to more support. And in this case, Ukraine need to send a friendship message to Germany. So that is what's happening, I think.
Thank you for sharing that analysis, Dr. Nagao. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now we move on to U.S. Former U.S. President Barack Obama has condemned the operations of Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers in Minnesota, comparing their behavior to conduct seen in dictatorships. Thousands of federal agents, including ICE agents, carried out weeks of sweeping raids and arrests in what the President Donald Trump's administration claims were targeted missions against criminals until the operation was ended this week. Obama has criticized the actions of ICE agents as unlawful last month. Obama has also said that the rogue behavior of agents of the federal government is deeply concerning and dangerous. Now we welcome back Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at Hudson Institute, joins us live from Tokyo. Thank you very much, Dr. Nagao, for staying with us. Now, looking at Obama's speech, is he trying to ramp up this Democrat support for the upcoming elections?
Yes, of course, the upcoming election is a decisive battle between Republican versus Democrat, and in this case, role of the President Obama is advertising Democrat achievement and criticize Republicans' governance in the United States. But at the same time, in case of the incident in the Minnesota, the video clearly showed that the quality of the ICE's agents' work was very bad. So that's why the President Trump decided to withdraw the ICE agent from the Minnesota just now. Even if the cracking down the illegal immigrant itself is a very important policy and advertised policy for the Republican government. So that's why bill from the President Obama, which has a role to advertise the Democrats, in this case, they have the advantage in this case and criticize the quality of the work of its agent. So, but impact towards the midterm election is controversial because election will happen in November and this month is still the February. So that's why this incident itself could affect the result of the election if the timing is just before the November. But this is February, so still the certain time exists. So that's why this time both Republican and Democrat agree the quality of the work of ICE was bad and they need to reorganize this. And this means that even if they criticize the work, indeed they try to calm down this incident just now to prepare the next battle before the midterm election, I think.
Right. So how do you think, how will Republicans be able to, undo the image or undo the reputation that has hurt them because of the ICE agents, especially the shooting that occurred towards the two individuals who passed away?
And that is what President Trump is doing. Firstly, the withdraw and stop this activity. After that, reorganize the plan to cracking down the illegal immigrant. And as the next phase, they will restart the operation, but different tactics. So that is the process, I think. So just now, the withdrawing, we are seeing. So maybe reorganize the process will come later because without training, ICE agents' work will not improve, I think. So that's why certain time is needed. But this is February and the election is November, means that during that time, some months is needed to retrain the ICE agent. So that's for from this, some months later it will start, or the little area it will start. Could happen, but anyway, just now withdrawing is the proper tactics. Because I think President Trump himself sees the video, I believe, and President Trump himself thinks this is not good. That's why he immediately withdraw, I think. So that's why now is the time to reorganize. Withdraw is proper. That is part of tactics, I think.
Right. Thank you for highlighting that, Dr. Nagao. Please stay with us as we come back to you after breaking news. Now we have a breaking news coming in from Ukraine. Ukraine's Flamingo missile production line has been destroyed in a missile strike, according to President Volodymyr Zelensky, who broke the news at a press conference during the Munich Security Conference. Zelensky has explained that Ukraine doesn't have many of these missile lines, and this particular strike has dealt a significant blow to their capacity. Has added that he could speak about the incident because it occurred some time ago. In August, Zelensky had stated that Ukraine possessed a Flamingo missile with a range of 3,000 kilometers, but mass production would be delayed despite claims of Ukrainian-made missile. Analysts have noted similarities to British technology. Now we welcome retired Major General Dr. Rajan Kochar. He's an international relations expert and joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General Dr. Kochar, for joining us. Thank you. Now, thank you. Now, looking at this, why has Zelensky decided to announce this in this timing? Because he has already mentioned this occurred in August, not February. And do you think moving on, or this has affected in Ukraine changing their strategy?
You see, what happens is this war is getting prolonged, and resources and military hardware, as far as Zelensky is concerned, it's depleting. So basically, it's a kind of an appeal to the European countries, and especially the European Union and the United States, that in case Ukraine has to fight this war, it needs missiles. So FP5 Flamingo is a very versatile cruise missile, which Ukraine was having its own production line. Its range is almost 3,000 kilometers, and it has a large payload. So it had a positive effect as far as Ukraine was actually concerned in this war. But today, the vulnerability of Ukraine is that depletion of its domestic defense industrial base, because most of the things, if you see in Ukraine, the maximum industrial base is in Kharkiv. And Kharkiv, there has been offensive going on in that area, and large production bases have been destroyed, and Flamingo is one of them. So I think shortage of a missile is a big concern for the Ukraine today. So he's sending a strategic message to these countries that he needs missiles, and in case he's not going to get them, then I think that the long-range strike capability of Ukraine gets affected. So I think, and if you remember that he has used these missiles in Kapustin Yar test range and sites where the Russian missile infrastructure has been there, and he has been targeting the Russian missile infrastructure with these cruise missiles. So I think what actually matters now for Zelensky is that he needs, because local production has been affected, and he needs some kind of help to resuscitate it, though he has mentioned that the production line has been restored, but possibly the full restoration has not taken place. So these are the factors which are prompting him to make this signaling.
Thank you very much, Major General Doctor, for sharing that insight with us. Please stay with us as we come back to you. Now, looking at NASA, Crew 12 astronauts have arrived at the International Space Station to replace the previous crew, Crew 11, who had to return early due to a medical issue. The astronauts, including Jessica Meir, Jack Hathaway, Sophie Adenauer, and Andriy Fedyaev, have traveled for 34 hours from Florida aboard a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. The crew has been planning to conduct various experiments during their 8-month mission, including microgravity and automated plant health monitoring. Sophie Adenauer, the second French woman in space, will also test a system that uses artificial intelligence for medical ultrasound. Let's listen in to Sophie Adenauer as she shares her excitement directly from space.
Maintenant, un mot pour les Français. Bonjour les Français depuis la capsule Dragon SpaceX avec l'équipage Crew 12. Un grand merci à toutes les équipes de SpaceX, de la NASA, de l'ESA, du CNES, de Roscosmos, de la CSA et JAXA qui contribuent directement au succès de cette mission. Nous venons nous amarrer à la Station spatiale internationale après 34 heures de vol libre. Tout se passe de manière nominale et la Terre est vraiment, vraiment belle depuis là-haut. Merci à vous de votre soutien et de votre enthousiasme, ça nous fait chaud au cœur. Je suis fière d'embarquer la France et l'Europe dans cette incroyable aventure qui dépasse les frontières. Comptez sur moi pour en partager partager toutes les étapes avec vous et faire briller les étoiles dans les yeux des Français. Prenez soin de vous et à bientôt. Over to Andrew.
Now we move on to Pakistan. In Pakistan, the Baloch Liberation Army has released a video asserting that 7 security personnel are currently in its custody. In an accompanying statement, the group has announced a 7-day ultimatum demanding a prisoner exchange in return for their release. According to the statement, the BLA has warned that failure to meet its demands within the specified time frame could result in serious consequences. Authorities in Pakistan have not yet issued an official response to these claims. This comes after January's coordinated series of attacks launched by the separatist group, the BLA, against Pakistani security forces and infrastructure in the Balochistan province. Now we welcome back retired Major General Dr. Rajan Kochhar. He joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General Doctor, for staying with us. Now looking at this, how might this recent hostage claim and ultimatum by BLA affect Pakistan's internal security strategy and political stability of Pakistan? Is this it seems like this is ongoing and Pakistani army or Pakistani government hasn't been able to to reach a balancing situation or point of diplomacy with them.
You're very right, Asuma, because the situation in Balochistan and not only Balochistan, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa also, the things are not too good. And we have also seen recent suicide attacks in Islamabad, Karachi and all these areas. So it is now, this is all spreading around, and it's not only the BLA which is active, the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan and the ISIS Khorasan also is very active. So coming to this hostage crisis kind of a thing, as I understand Pakistan Army, and if I look at the precedents also, the Pakistan Army is not going to exchange the prisoners because that has been their stated counter-terrorism policy. And they have never done it earlier, so I don't think they're going to do it now. And they may try to locate these people and try to launch a strike to rescue them, because previously also they have carried out similar operations to rescue their own people who were captured by BLA or TTP. Now what happens here is, in case if you have a map of Balochistan, if you study that map, you will find that the core operating areas of BLA are Quetta, basically for strategic signaling, because if they do anything in Quetta, it becomes headlines. Mastung is another area. Basically it's a transit hub between central Balochistan and Quetta. Then Kalat is an area where they have their training pockets and sanctuaries, and Khuzdar is another area where they basically carry out their operational planning. So Pakistan would be looking at these tribal areas or these rural areas where possibly something like Khuzdar, because there to keep the hostages is much more safer in view of their terrain. And the next area which Pakistan Army may like to concentrate is the Kech area or the Turbat area, because that is also an area where possibility of these people may be there. But as far as Pakistan Army is concerned, Pakistan Army feels reluctant to carry out a guerrilla type of operation, because when they carry out a guerrilla type of operation, there is a large damage or casualties to the Pakistan Army. And what we have seen is normally Pakistan Army resorts to either a drone attack or air base attack or a strike, by their aircrafts on specific locations, and they don't bother for collateral damage in case civilians are also killed. It doesn't matter to the Pakistan Army, as we have seen in areas in Balochistan where air strikes were carried out by the Pakistan earlier.
And Major General, Doctor, so building on this, as the situation seemed to escalate and building on your answer that Pakistan Army will not abide by the demands of BLA, so what are the potential regional implications if Pakistani government either negotiates or refuses the BLA's demands?
See, it's most likely because DG ISPR so far has not made a statement. The first thing is that they have not yet acknowledged that these 7 Pakistani soldiers are in the custody of the BLA. So we would be, first thing we would be looking for a statement from the DG ISPR. And once that statement is made public, then Pakistan Army would acknowledge the fact that their people are in custody. Otherwise, so far, it's a grey zone area, like Pakistan Army has not yet come out to acknowledge whether these people have been captured or not. So, and the next step is the Pakistan Army is going to tell them to release them, otherwise they'll be held to pay, because that is what Pakistan Army has been doing over a period of time, and here also Pakistan Army will resort to a similar kind of tactic. I don't think, in my own analysis, Pakistan Army is going to negotiate with these people.
With that, I'd like to thank Dr. Major General Rajan Kochhar for joining us and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we move on to our tech news. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang will not be traveling to India for the much anticipated AI Impact Summit next week. The event, set to be inaugurated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, was expected to feature Huang as a major speaker. However, his participation was cancelled due to unforeseen circumstances. Huang had been scheduled to address the media in New Delhi on Wednesday, but his trip has now been aborted. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news and updates from around the world.
What we can do as the Interparliamentary Union to strengthen democracy, to promote human rights, to ensure that humanitarian law is respected.
UN Security Council needs a makeover, a comprehensive reform, and India deserves a position there, a role there.
Prime Minister Modi during Operation Sindoor made it amply clear that war has never been India's choice. We are with the side of peace. We are neither neutral nor indifferent. We are with peace.
We would have dealt with US a whole lot on trade and those kinds of things, and that's not as certain these days. So we have to go back and look at our European partners, our Asian partners.
An opportunity to exchange, to have a dialogue, to have a deep.
Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the headlines of this hour. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he hopes US brokered talks in Geneva next week are substantive, but adds Ukraine is too often asked to make concessions. He accuses Moscow of delaying progress by changing its lead negotiator as US, Russian, and Ukrainian delegations prepare to meet in Switzerland. The US Justice Department sends lawmakers a legally required letter outlining redactions in files linked to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The letter lists high-profile names referenced in the records without detailing the context, including individuals who may have had no direct contact with Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell. Britain and European allies say Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny is killed with a poison linked to dart frog toxin, who 2 years after his death in a Siberian prison. UK Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper says only the Russian government has the means and motive, while Moscow dismisses the claim as an information campaign. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen says she believes President Donald Trump still wants to own Greenland despite recently toning down his threats. Speaking in Munich, she stresses Greenland is not for sale as security tensions between Copenhagen and Washington continue to rise. Iranian opposition figure Reza Pahlavi says U.S. military intervention could save lives and urges President Donald Trump not to spend too long negotiating a nuclear deal with Tehran. The exiled son of Iran's former Shah tells Reuters he believes the clerical government is nearing collapse and says an attack could accelerate its fall. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is set to begin a two-day trip to bolster ties with Slovakia and Hungary, whose conservative leaders, often at odds with other European Union countries, have warm ties with President Donald Trump. Rubio is to discuss energy cooperation and bilateral issues, including NATO commitments. According to Australian government announcements, Australia will spend $2.76 billion to advance construction of a shipyard to support nuclear-powered submarines under the 2021 AUKUS Defence Pact with the US and Britain. The agreement is Australia's largest ever defence investment. According to Taiwan Foreign Minister Ling Chia-lung, China said that China is the real threat to regional security and is hypocritically claiming to defend UN principles of peace in response. He said this in response to Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi at the Munich Security Conference, as Wang Yi warned that some countries are trying to split Taiwan from China. Now we start this hour with Taiwan. Taiwan's Foreign Minister Ling Chia-lung has sharply criticized China's stance on security, accusing Beijing of hypocrisy in its claims to uphold United Nations principles of peace. Lin's remarks come in response to Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi's comments at the Munich Security Conference, where Wang has warned against efforts to split Taiwan from China and accused Japan of stoking tensions over the island. In a statement, Lin has emphasized that Taiwan's sovereignty has never belonged to the People's Republic of China, whether under historical facts, objective reality, or international law. Lin has further rebuked China for its actions, stating that while Wang boasts of adhering to the UN Charter, China's military provocations and violations of UN principles, including the threat of force, exposes its hegemonic behavior. China's military has regularly staged exercises near Taiwan, with the latest round of mass war games conducted in December. Taiwan, which views itself as a self-governed democracy, rejects China's claims, stating that Taiwan's sovereignty should be determined by its people, not Beijing. Taiwan's opposition also counters China's argument that the island was returned to Chinese rule at the end of World War II. Now for this, we welcome former Ambassador KP Fabian. He's a former ambassador, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for joining us. Good to see you. Now looking at this, it seems like China and Taiwan are both pushing for totally different narratives. Do you really think that Taiwan can long-term keep their stance about this? And is there any success story of two system, one country, which China claims to give to Hong Kong or Taiwan?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, let me put it this way.
Yes.
China, meaning Beijing, is going to get Taiwan sooner or later through military or other means. There cannot be much doubt about that. But having said that, I want to make a point about the argument put out by the Taiwanese foreign minister. Yes. You see, the mainland China and Taiwan was one country. Then what happened was that in 1949, Mao Zedong said China stood up. That is, in the Civil War, Mao Zedong was able to defeat Chiang Kai-shek. And Chiang Kai-shek ran away and he established himself in Taiwan. And at that time, Mao Zedong did not have the military wherewithal to chase him there. And in any case, it was clear that America might intervene if Mao Zedong had done it. But to take forward, in 1971-72, Nixon visited Mao Zedong, and later, much later, there was the principle of one China, which was enunciated by Kissinger, who said that Chinese on either side of the Straits of Taiwan believe that there is only one China. That was a very clever formulation by Kissinger. He said that both of them believe. That is, in other words, the so-called Republic of China in Taiwan, sort of had sovereignty over the mainland China, which of course is fiction. And the other is that the mainland China, that is Beijing, PRC, had sovereignty over Taiwan, which also is fiction. But, in diplomacy, such fictions work. But when it comes to geopolitics, it's my view that if Xi Jinping, as part of his legacy, were to take over Taiwan, as I said, militarily or otherwise, nothing much stands in his way.
Yes, thank you for highlighting that. And Ambassador Fabian, so nowadays, today, who is adhering by the rule? Is it only the small nations? What's the state of international law set by UN? How dangerous is current world order?
Well, let me take you back to history. Thucydides, he wrote about 2,400 years ago, 24 centuries ago, the strong do what they want, and the weak shall have to suffer. Now, historically, we have been trying to change it, but we have not fully succeeded, and I'm afraid under President Trump, we have to recall the words of Thucydides. He gets away, not always, with what he wants to do by using American might. But as you know, when the European Union threatened to use its bazooka, that is endangering America's exports to the European Union amounting to $170 billion, then Trump climbed down on Greenland as well as on tariffs he imposed on the 7 European Union countries plus UK.
With that, I would like to thank Ambassador Fabian for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for the next discussion as well. Now, moving to U.S., the U.S. Department of Justice has sent a letter to lawmakers regarding the redactions in the file pertaining the convicted late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. According to reports, the letter, required by law, includes a general description of the types of redactions made and a list of notable people mentioned in the files in any way. The letter also includes an extensive list of high-profile people or politically exposed persons referenced in the files even if they had no interactions with Epstein or his long-term associate Ghislaine Maxwell. The letter sent to the leaders of the Senate and House Judiciary Committees does not state in what context a name appears. Now we welcome back former Ambassador KP Fabian. He's a former ambassador, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for staying with us. Now, as you know, in our last discussion, you just quoted the 2,400 years ago, the strong do what they want. Now, how is this Jeffrey Epstein case exposing all that in terms of political elites, the double standards, the blind eye that, they get by doing all these things that that is still coming out from these Epstein files?
Well, the survivor victims have put out a statement saying that the true, those who committed the atrocities, they are still protected and almost unnamed. Now, the Justice Department as you mentioned, has written that letter, but it has also explained separately that it did not come under any pressure from the White House as how to go about the task of redaction. But my view is that, of course, I could be wrong. My view is that the redaction has been done primarily to save President Trump. And till now, they have got away with it because, as you know, in other countries, in Europe, in UK, Lord Mandelson had to resign, and UK, the former Prince Andrew is in trouble, and in Norway, some former prime minister had to resign, and all that. Elsewhere, in France also, and also in Belgium. So all that is happening in across the Atlantic. But in the United States, nothing is happening because, let me put it this way, those European democracies are more responsive to such public acknowledgement of such outrageous behavior. Whereas in the United States, President Trump has a much thicker skin and he has strong support too. His supporters, MAGA and others, though some of them are worried, but mostly the Republicans still support him. And as of now, he can get away with it. But once again, it is my guess that we do not know whether he can get away with it forever. You can fool some people for some time, you can fool all people for some time, but you cannot fool all people for all time. Said by one of President Trump's distinguished predecessors, Abraham Lincoln.
Thank you for highlighting that. And Ambassador, also, because also of Jeffrey Epstein case, and also not just that, but many other reasons, we know that President Trump is losing his popularity or support, as the polls show through media reports. So how do you think this crackdown on, not on Jeffrey Epstein case, yes, so the lack of transparency which Jeffrey Epstein case has exposed, right? Do you think this is enough, this attitude from Trump administration is enough for him to gain back the voters that he's been losing? What do you think would be the strategy for him to gain back some trust or the support as the midterm elections are upcoming in November?
Well, let me put it this way. There is a hardcore support system base for President Trump. That hardcore will always remain with him. But to win, he needs to have not only the hardcore, but also others. Now, as regards others, I'm afraid his support, and I'm glad, his support is weakening, and it is possible that in November this year, he will meet his Waterloo. To recall what happened to Napoleon.
Right. And as Ghislaine Maxwell, she denied to testify when she was called last week. So how do you think that, how could this move be affecting the broader credibility and perceived impartiality of Congress investigation into the Jeffrey Epstein files?
But she is right legally, because under the US Constitution, you do not have to say anything which might incriminate yourself. But she is morally wrong, and I hold she is morally bankrupt. It would have been better for her to admit to what she has done and seek pardon. Right. That would have been more honorable.
Yes, indeed. And also, what are the broader political implications if members of Congress are seen as lacking the authority to enforce disclosure laws in the Justice Department?
Well, let me put it this way. Every democracy is supposed to be self-correcting. As you know, Montesquieu's famous separation of powers, executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. each has its own area. And if the executive overreaches, then it is for the judiciary and the legislative to rein in the executive. Now, in the case of the United States, well, some action is being taken. As you know, there is a Congress move telling Trump that he cannot impose tariffs on Canada. It is not complete because it has to go to Senate and all that. So there is some move. But basically, I would say that at this point, America, the oldest democracy in the modern world, has proved that it is incapable of self-correction.
Yes, so as you rightfully mentioned, this is the oldest democracy, and now we see the lack of accountability among many figures, and especially the fact that the crime is so heinous, like prostitution of children. So how do you think this is weighing down on this overall image of even US democracy and the legitimacy that as foreigners we had about US and its image?
Well, America's reputation as a democracy is falling, and falling, at an accelerated speed under President Trump. Now that is unfortunate because, we all need democracy. Meaning, we want to see democracy prevail everywhere. Only thing is that we in India, we do not claim to export democracy. But it is our hope, it is our plea that democracy should spread and that nominally democratic countries like the United States should be genuinely democratic. But then again, we do not wish to preach to America. President Trump is a very, difficult person to handle. So we should be diplomatic and officially we should not make any statements. But we in the media are free and we are entitled to, and it is our duty to speak out.
Thank you very much. With that, I'd like to thank Ambassador Fabian for joining us and sharing that insight. Now we move on to Iran. Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Majid Ravanchi in an interview has said that Iran is willing to explore compromises to reach a nuclear deal with the United States, provided Washington's engagements in discussions about lifting sanctions. Ravanchi has emphasized that Iran's readiness for negotiation hinges on the U.S. addressing sanctions, which remain a key issue in the ongoing nuclear talks. The minister's remarks come amid rising tensions over Iran's nuclear ambitions and the geopolitical implications of its relations with the West. Now for this discussion, we welcome Ms. Nilofer. We'll go back to our read for this. Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Majid Ravanchi in an interview said that Iran is willing to explore compromises to reach a nuclear deal with US. Now we welcome our guest, Ms. Nilofer Ara. She's an Iranian women and human rights activist, joins us live from Turkey. Thank you very much, Ms. Ara, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, what more can you tell us about this ongoing situation in Iran, if you know any reports that's coming in from Iran and Iran's protests? And also, do you think that this is genuine that Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister has said that Iran is willing to explore compromises?
First of all, hi. Second of all, I feel like, no, it's not genuine because it's been over 10 years that they are doing these kind of conversations, and through a lot of opinions of the analysis, maybe they are buying some time. But the good news is that the diplomacy is still open and they are willing to talk. But they are a little bit unlogical, because as far as we know, the United States of America are saying that we want full control of your nuclear weapons and nuclear energies in Tehran, but Arabchi and Tehran are not willing to give them such a thing until they will give them some kind of a guarantee that they will limit this kind of things that they are doing now, because they are suffering from economic problems right now in Tehran so much. So I don't see this kind of conversations that guarantee a full negotiation or something like that. And it's been like over 10 years that Iran is trying to reach a negotiation, an agreement like the one in 2015, but I don't see that's coming.
Thank you for highlighting that. And Ms. Ara, how do you analyze the current popularity of the regime and versus the popularity of the exiled Shah's son, Reza Pahlavi?
I can tell you from our own informations from our friends in Iran that they are buying people for them, the IRGC. They are buying people for them to go to protests for like the Islamic Republic of Iran. And generally, I don't think there are so many people that they support this regime, because this regime is almost done. They have already played every card possible, and it's time for them to go. But this is their last moments, and they are doing everything before getting drowned into the water, if you know what I mean. So I think no, they are not winning, absolutely, and they have already failed. And this is their last briefs. But on the other side, the people that support Shahzadeh Reza Pahlavi, which we call Shah Reza Pahlavi, of course there are too many people. And of course yesterday in Munich and in LA, there were too many people. There were like gathered around 5,000, if I'm right. I don't know exactly the statistical things in this kind of things, but I think there are lots of people over there, and we have seen some kind of videos from there. And also Reza Pahlavi did go to Munich, and he had a really emotional speech for everyone, for every Iranian that was there, and there were lots of people supporting him and supporting the people of Iran.
And you know, we also, of course, it's my knowledge about the fall of Shah's regime is limited, but I know some reason that some repression of the people was involved when the Shah's regime fell. Do you think Iranian people right now have forgotten or forgiven why the Shah's regime in Iran fell more than 40 years ago?
I mean, like, this is not their fault. This is not Shah Reza Pahlavi's fault. Back there, like 47 or 48 years ago, people were brainwashed. And back then we didn't have internet, we didn't have Instagram, we couldn't get connections, so most of the people were brainwashed. The last revolution was about religious. This revolution is about something else, is about freedom, democracy. So they are not connected to each other. At this point, I think Reza Pahlavi should be the one to forgive the people of Iran to what they have done to his family. And this is a little bit, I think, sad for everyone that they have seen their own parents that was like involved in such a revolution. It was an unfair revolution. I mean, if you look at Khomeini's photos, Khomeini's educations, but they all of a sudden wanted to choose religion over everything. So, you know, they were just all brainwashed because it was no internet and no enough education for them to know a lot of things.
With that, I would like to thank Ms. Nilüfer Ara for joining us from Turkey and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we move on. Protesters are marching through downtown Los Angeles to denounce the Iranian government's recently deadly crackdown on dissidents while urging global solidarity with the Iranian people. Waving large Iranian and US flags, the demonstrators carried banners with messages like "Long live Iran" and "The Islamic Republic killed my brother," as they chanted for freedom and justice, drawing attention to the regime's human rights abuses and the plight of those impacted. The protests in Los Angeles is part of other rallies worldwide, with the largest gatherings including Munich and Toronto on what is known as the Global Day of Action. Let's listen in.
We're here to protest against the Islamic regime of Iran.
And why is that important to you?
Because there was a massacre about a month ago, and the regime has been so unfair to the people. So that's why we're protesting.
Now we move on to Mexico. Massive protests broke out in Zacatecas, city of Mexico, after workers at a silver mine owned by Canada's Wizla Silver Corp were kidnapped and killed. People from multiple age groups marched holding the banners to mourn the victims and speak out against extortion. Authorities found the bodies of 10 victims in Sinaloa and believe that they may have been mistaken for members of rival gang. According to reports, the protest ended at the municipal palace, where people demanded the government to take sincere action against the violence.
Pues el objetivo es levantar la voz por la paz, por seguridad principalmente.
Ya se vale, porque somos gente trabajadora, somos gente honesta, somos gente derecha. Nos falta mucho. Aquí estamos manifestándonos de una manera silenciosa, pacífica, y luchando por la justicia de todos.
Now we move on. Astronomers have discovered a planetary system that challenges current theories of planet formation. The system, located about 117 light years from Earth in the Lynx constellation, includes a rocky planet that formed outside the orbit of its gaseous neighbors. Traditional theory suggests that planets closer to a star should be rocky, while those further out should be gaseous. However, this system defies that, showing a rocky planet beyond gaseous ones. The system observed with the Keops Space Telescope includes 2 rocky super-Earths and 2 mini-Neptunes. The fourth planet, with a mass 5.8 times that of Earth, may also be habitable. Scientists think it could have formed later in gas-poor environment or experienced a catastrophic collision. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.
In the midst of this, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.
Hello and welcome. I'm Suma Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he hopes U.S. brokered talks in Geneva next week are substantive, but adds Ukraine is too often asked to make concessions. He accuses Moscow of delaying progress by changing its lead negotiator as U.S., Russian, and Ukrainian delegations prepare to meet in Switzerland. The U.S. Justice Department sends lawmakers a legally required letter outlining redactions in files linked to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The letter lists high-profile names referenced in the records without detailing the context, including individuals who may have had no direct contact with Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell. Britain and European allies say Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny is killed with a poison linked to dart frog toxin. 2 years after his death in a Siberian prison, UK Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper says only the Russian government has the means and motive, while Moscow dismisses the claim as an information campaign. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen says she believes President Donald Trump still wants to own Greenland despite recently toning down his threats. Speaking in Munich, she stresses Greenland is not for sale as security tensions between Copenhagen and Washington continue. Iranian opposition figure Reza Pahlavi says U.S. military intervention could save lives and urges President Donald Trump not to spend too long negotiating a nuclear deal with Tehran. The exiled son of Iran's former Shah tells Reuters he believes the clerical government is nearing collapse and says an attack could accelerate its fall. A media review finds judges have ruled more than 4,400 times since October that the Trump administration is unlawfully detaining immigrants despite the sweeping legal rebuke. The government continues to hold some detainees even after courts declared the policy illegal. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte says Russia has suffered around 65,000 troop losses in the past 2 months of fighting in Ukraine. Speaking in Munich, he adds the alliance is strong enough that Moscow would not currently dare to attack NATO. President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu agree at the White House to work to cut Iran's oil exports to China. According to Axios, a senior U.S. official says the two leaders plan to apply maximum pressure to curb Tehran's energy sales. Now we start this hour with U.S. in a tragic development. 22-year-old Saket Srinivasaiah, an Indian student at the University of California, Berkeley, has been found dead 6 days after he went missing. The student, originally from Karnataka, was last seen near the campus on February 9th. A citywide search led to the discovery of his body, and the Indian consulate in San Francisco has assured full support for the repatriation of his remains. Srinivasaiah, an alumnus of IIT Madras, had been pursuing a master's degree in chemical and biomolecular engineering in US. Now for this, we welcome retired Colonel Sanjay Sirohi. He's an international relations and defense expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Colonel, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, this unfortunate event has taken place, and this is unfortunately not the very first that something like this has happened to, very bright Indian students who were studying abroad, especially in Western countries like US and Canada. How should the countries which host these bright students, are responsible to protect these international students, and also what can we expect from this now?
Thank you, Asuma, good morning and having me on your news channel and discussing a very, very sad event which has happened with Saket, who got missing on 9th February and who was doing an MSc from University of California. This is not the first time. If you see, there are a large number of students who have died in mysterious circumstances, specifically in United States. There have been disappearances which have not been explained. And regarding this latest one, Saket, who went missing on 9th February and his body was found out after 6 days, it shows that there is something wrong somewhere. I think what I feel is that there is a discrimination against the Indian students, specifically in United States. Because if you remember that in 2024, within 4 months, there were 11 students who went missing, Indian students who went missing, and later on they were found dead. So I think the government which are hosting their students, they must make sure that they must be provided proper safety, security, and in case of these events which take place, unfortunate events which take place, the government and the investigating agencies must investigate properly, and they must take some measures to make sure that these things don't happen. Because this boy who was from IIT Madras in India, getting into IIT is not an easy thing, and after that, he has done his BTech, he has gone abroad. So he was a very, very bright student, and the bright student who dies like this, it is not only loss to the country where he was studying, it is a loss to India also. So I think there are two things which must be seen into. As far as the United States is concerned, they must ensure safety, security, and carry out proper investigation. And on the other hand, I will say that the Indian government and other people must also take into this consideration and make sure that the bright students, they don't go abroad to study. All those facilities must be available in the country itself, in India itself. Asuma.
Yes. Yes, indeed. The brain drain from especially India to US is real, including these students from IIT, not just one IIT, but many IITs who end up moving to states or Western countries for better jobs, better opportunities, better salaries. How is this brain drain affecting, India in long term, and what needs to be done right now in terms of protecting these students, not just for their safety, but for India's prospect for the future?
Well, your question has two parts. Firstly, what should the government or the people in India should do? Why should people, after doing their BTech from IITs, because the IITs are producing the best engineers, graduates, and technical people, and the government is spending a lot of money in building up all these institutions, and after they have done their BTech, after that when they go to United States or any other country, I think it is a great loss to the country itself. So I think first of all, the government of India must ensure that the education system of ours should be as good, if not better, than any other country in the world. That is number one. As regards the country which are hosting these students, I think it is their moral responsibility, irrespective of the caste, creed, country, race, that these people who have come to you, and these are the people who are your intellectuals, because these students are going to serve you. They are not going to serve India. They are going to serve United States. They'll get a job in United States. It is your assets. You must make sure that you look after these assets. If these assets have moved from India, it is lost to India. But if they come to your country and they disappear and later on they are found dead, then I think it is lost to both the country, India, as well as the host country. Asuma.
Yes. Like US has H-1B visa, which of course, as we know, most of the applicants are from India, especially from such bright schools. And also now China has another visa. Unfortunately, I don't remember the exact name, but they've issued this visa for these special bright students. So what can India do to maybe stop them to go to these countries right now?
No, we can't stop them because India is a democratic country. We can't lay down the rules that no student after doing their BTech from IIT or any of the prestigious institutions, they cannot leave the country. I think that is not possible. But I think the avenues must be the government and the other private sector must make sure, even the institutes must make sure that if the person has done BTech, then why can't he do MTech and other important professional courses in the country itself? So I think it is the country itself, that is the Indian government must make sure that they should make our country, that is India, they should make it more attractive for the students to stay put here only and work here only. It will not only benefit the students, it will benefit the country, it will benefit as a nation as a whole. So I think the moral responsibility of making sure that the students, they don't go abroad for higher studies or for taking up a job. The country itself must make sure that these students, they get all these opportunities, whatever are available in other countries, they are available in the homeland itself. Asuma.
Thank you very much, retired Colonel Sanjay Sirohi, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you. Now, moving on to Europe, Yulia Navalnaya, Russian opposition politician, and Alexei Navalny's widow has said that the murder of late Russian opposition politician Alexei Navalny in an Arctic prison in 2024 is now a science-proven fact. This comes after when 5 European countries have said that Moscow has used a lethal toxin found in the skin of dart frogs native to South America on the Kremlin opponent. Navalnaya has also said that she was certain that it was a murder, but in that moment it was just words. But today these words have become a science-proven fact. Let's listen into what Yulia Navalnaya has shared.
2 года назад был самый ужасный день в моей жизни. Я здесь, в Мюнхене, я узнала о смерти моего мужа. Я вышла на сцену и сказала, что это Владимир Путин убил моего мужа, Алексея Навального. И я хочу еще раз повторить. Владимир Путин убил моего мужа, Алексея Навального, с использованием химического оружия. Конечно, это не новость, что Владимир Путин убийца. Но теперь у нас есть этому еще одно прямое доказательство. И я очень надеюсь, что однажды он окажется на скамье подсудимых и ответит за все, что он делал эти годы.
Now we welcome back retired Colonel Sanjay Sirohi. He joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Colonel, for staying with us. Now looking at this, these reports have just come in, although Russia has denied these allegations. How will this further impact or strain the relations between Europe and Russia?
Asuma, the relations are already strained between the European nations and the Russians after the Ukraine war. And the death of Alexei Navalny in the Arctic prison in 2024 have raised a lot of hue and cry among the European nations, and specifically from UK, France, Germany, Netherlands, and Sweden, that Navalny was poisoned by the Russians when he was in Arctic prison in 2024, and it was not the first time he was poisoned. They have also alleged that in 2020 he was poisoned, and later on he was evacuated to Germany where he was diagnosed for a poison, and after that he recovered and he went back to Russia. When he went back to Russia, again he was arrested and put into a jail. Because this man has been a very critical about the policies of President Putin, and he has been creating problem for Putin as far as the running of the government is concerned. So they put him in a jail, and whatever now they are saying that even the European nations are saying that it is a science-proven fact that he was poisoned by dart frog toxin, that is the epibeta D, which is found in the frogs of South America, and this poison is not found in Russia. And they are also saying that Russia has got the motive, they have got the means, and they have got opportunity to poison him. But the doubt which arises is that how come UK have got the samples of Navalny's after the post-mortem? How did they get the sample? And secondly, where the tests were carried out? So it is still questionable, with the Russians have been denying from day one. So it is not very clear, and the question which arises is that how the samples came to Europe, and where were the sample testing was done. So I don't know how far this is true, but yes, what these 5 European nations are saying, that this gentleman was poisoned at the instructions of Mr. Putin because he was a threat to Mr. Putin. Asuma.
Yes, and also, what are we to make sense of, the reports that had come in that this poison from a frog was used to unalive this gentleman?
Look, Asuma, these are the allegations which has been made by the European countries, which the Russians have denied. Now, from where did they? Now, getting a poison is not a big deal. Anybody, any country can get it. This thing poison from South America, so it is not very, very difficult for Russians to get this poison. But why did they use this poison only? They could have used some other poison also. So that is very doubtful. And what the Europeans are talking, and Navalny's widow, Yulia, is also talking about the size-proven fact. So it is difficult to find out that, like I am saying, that how did they get sample of Navalny's this thing poison from Russia? It is very difficult to get out anything from Russia. And if they have got these samples, where did they carry out the test? Who carried out the test? So these questions have not been answered by the United Kingdom, this thing. So let us see what comes out later on.
Yes, we will be eyeing that. Thank you very much. With that, I'd like to thank Mr. Colonel Sanjay Sirohi for joining us and sharing that insight with us. Thank you. Now we have a breaking news coming in from Israel and Gaza. An overnight Israeli airstrikes have killed at least 8 people in the Gaza Strip. According to reports, the first strike in the Khan Yunis area in southern Gaza has killed 4 people, and the 4 more were killed in the second strike near Jabalia in northern Gaza area. The strikes come after 5 gunmen approached troops on the Israeli side of the Yellow Line last night, and the IDF said that it was a blatant violation of the ceasefire. Now we welcome back retired Major General A.K. Sivaji. He's a geostrategic expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General Sivaji, for joining us again. Now, Major General, you know, both sides have blamed each other. As for now, although Gaza hasn't issued any statement, Israel has said that the people, 5 gunmen approached troops in the Israeli side of the Yellow Line. Can you tell us a little bit more about how effective, or is this Yellow Line very clear for both sides to ensure that something like this doesn't happen? And how does this, you know, ongoing but this the ceasefire in effect is affecting the legitimacy of this ceasefire?
Yeah, Asuma, 3-4 points. First of all, not denying the fact that, you know, the peace talk took place and then peace agreement was signed. It had basically in 3 phases. The phase 1 was basically the ceasefire and also return of the hostages, and Israel falling back on a Yellow Line. And the second phase will be basically demilitarization as well as disarming Hamas. And third will be reconstruction activity in Gaza. Now, as far as the first phase is concerned, that's the one which we are talking about, where the hostages by and large have been returned, or their dead bodies have been sent back to Israel. Now, Israel is on the Yellow Line, but there are reports which are coming that at time the Yellow Line is crossed by the Hamas again, and that is where the firing takes place. Whereas the Gaza has been always accusing Israel is using force, and they are crossing over from Yellow Line and hitting the civilians. The mainly death are of the either the civilians which are there or the people who are from the press. So these are the conflicting information which we're getting. But the main point is, what is the roadmap now? Now the point is that after the phase 1 by and large is over, the phase 2 is to start. The board of peace has been already started by Donald Trump, that has about 18 countries. That will be given a task of disarming and demilitarization of Gaza. And that is a very tricky issue, because most of these countries which have been part of board of peace, wherein the apex body is controlled by Donald Trump, and it has got executive members like Marco Rubio and Jared Kushner, as well as the ex-Prime Minister of UK, Tony Blair. The issue comes is how you will able to now demilitarize and disarm Hamas, because majority of these countries which are going to send the forces, basically international stabilizing force, will have a Muslim country. Will they take action in disarming? Because Hamas is not ready to disarm. That is a very, very important point. So as on today, we should focus on as to how things will unfold hereafter, because after phase 1, the phase 2 is very critical.
Yes, we will be eyeing that. Thank you very much, Major General, for staying with us. Please stay with us as we come back to you. Now we stay on this area. Protesters in Israel are calling for an independent state inquiry into the events of October 7, 2023. Demonstrators recently gathered in Tel Aviv, city of Israel, chanting slogans and playing drums to demand accountability. Some protesters carried images of victims from the attacks, while others wore masks of prominent global leaders. Protesters expressed their disappointment with the government as they failed to establish a national inquiry and eliminating transparency in the aftermath of the deadly events.
I'm here tonight to protest because I want to make sure that our government actually cares about the people, that they stand up to the law, and that they make sure that the democracy stays a democracy, that they are not above the law, that when somebody wants to criticize why people died in a war, that somebody actually checks and makes sure the facts and makes sure it doesn't happen again. I want a Jewish state for my children to be able to live in, not a place where it's run by religion.
I went out of the streets to protest against the government that decided not to establish a national committee of inquiry to investigate the events of October 7th and the decade that led to October 7th. The government has disappointed us. They have not done what we expected them to do as a leadership. The feeling that I'm feeling specifically is that they abandoned us. They don't care about the people of Israel. They don't care about the interest of the people of Israel.
Now we welcome back retired Major General A.K. Sivachi. Thank you very much, Major General, for staying with us. Now, how important is it for Israeli government to look into the shortcomings that has led to the October 7th, as they claim they are the only democracy in Middle East and they are the one of the best. They have one of the best defense systems or military systems. Where's the accountability?
Absolutely, Summa, there is no denying the fact what happened on 7th October was a genocide which was created by Hamas. But the surprise attack which was launched by Hamas, it found the Israeli intelligence and Israeli defense forces wanted. They were on the back foot. Their reaction was very, very poor. And 3-4 things stand out. Now the point is that intelligence was given about a possible attack of Hamas by the US as well as by the Egypt, whereas the Israelis have not taken it seriously. And there is total lack of intelligence failure. They are not denying this fact. And the response of the Israeli force, the IDF, was also not very professional. They possibly have not able to react in a more effective manner, and there are a number of casualties which have taken place due to a friendly fire. So there were almost more than 1,200 people killed, and about 250 people were taken as hostages by the Hamas. Now the question comes is, whatever has happened on 7th October, there is a requirement of carry out a fair inquiry and investigation by an inquiry commission. What government has done is they have carried out an investigation by the government agency. The people have no faith in that. They are saying that they are trying to whitewash, they are doing eyewash, they are only trying to cover themselves, and they are not coming with the actual fact as to how there was a failure of intelligence on 7th October and how did IDF not was prepared, and the reaction of IDF was not very professional. So there is this point which is coming now. The people are coming on the street. They want Netanyahu to go. There should be a proper inquiry by the inquiry commission which is independent. There should be a fair, free inquiry which should be objective and transparent, which the government is not doing. Government is doing their own inquiry by the government agencies which are trying to cover up rather than really finding where things have gone wrong, where more than 1,200 people were killed and more than 250 people were taken as a prisoners.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for sharing that important message with us. With that, I would like to thank Major General A.K. Sivachi for sharing that insight. Now we move on to Russia. We have a breaking news coming in from Russia. In Russia, Krasnodar Governor Veniamin Kondratiev says that Russia's Taman port has been reportedly damaged in a drone strike launched by Ukraine. The attack ignited a fire, though further details on the extent of this damage has not been provided. This strike adds to the ongoing tensions and escalating military exchanges between Russia and Ukraine. The situation is still developing, with authorities working to assess the full impact of this attack. Now we move on to Siberia. Thousands of protesters, including students, took to the streets of Valyevo, demanding early elections and justice for those responsible for police brutality during protests last year. The protest was fueled by widespread frustration over the government's handling of corruption and the violent crackdown on demonstrations. Protesters marched through the city waving national flags and chanting "Vučić thief," holding the government accountable for its actions. The European Union has criticized the use of excessive police force and urged Serbia to improve its rule of law. President Aleksandar Vučić, nearing the end of his second term, has promised to call snap elections. Let's listen into what some of the protesters have shared.
Ovo je država bez institucija. Od koga očekujete da nešto radi? Ko? Nema. Imamo čoveka koji je zarobio sve institucije. U ovoj državi ništa ne funkcioniše. Ja sam već čovjek koji je pred penzijom. Izašao sam zbog ove dece, zbog mladosti. Meni ne lično moje prošlo, ali zaista mi je žao te dece. I moje i tuđe, svačije, naše.
Rešenje je da u budućnosti budu kažnjeni oni koji treba da budu kažnjeni, da se otkrije ko je ovo naredio, ko je naredio da se brutalno biju deca na ulicama Valjeva. I treba da se konačno dođe do toga da svi odgovaramo za ono što smo učinili i da zaboravimo na nekažnjivost.
Ali nema odustajanja, ne smemo da odustanemo, jer odustajanje bi značilo da pristajemo na takvo ponašanje, a takvo ponašanje državnih institucija ili odsustvo ikakve reakcije institucije je nedopustivo.
Now we move on to space news. SpaceX successfully launched a new batch of 24 Starlink satellites into orbit using a two-stage Falcon 9 rocket. The rocket lifted off from the Vandenberg Space Force Base in California, and after stage separation, the first stage landed safely on the "Of Course I Still Love You" drone ship in the Pacific Ocean. This success followed another SpaceX launch just the day before. On February 13, a rocket from Cape Canaveral sent a crew set of 4 astronauts to the International Space Station for an 8-month science mission in microgravity, including 2 US NASA astronauts, a French astronaut and a Russian cosmonaut. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.
What we can do as the Interparliamentary Union to strengthen democracy, to promote human rights, to ensure that humanitarian law is respected.
UN Security Council needs a makeover, a comprehensive reform, and India deserves a position there, a role there.
Prime Minister Modi during Operation Sindoor made it.
Hello and welcome. I'm Sima Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the headlines of this hour. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he hopes US brokered talks in Geneva next week are substantive, but adds Ukraine is too often asked to make concessions. He accuses Moscow of delaying progress by changing its lead negotiator as US, Russian, and Ukrainian delegations prepare to meet in Switzerland. The US Justice Department sends lawmakers a legally required letter outlining redactions in files linked to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The letter lists high-profile names referenced in the records without detailing the context, including individuals who may have had no direct contact with Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell. Britain and European allies say Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny is killed with a poison linked to a dart frog toxin 2 years ago. After his death in Siberian prison, UK Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper says only the Russian government has the means and motive, while Moscow dismisses the claim as an information campaign. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen says she believes President Donald Trump still wants to own Greenland. Despite recently toning down his threats, speaking in Munich, she stresses Greenland is not for sale as security tensions between Copenhagen and Washington continue. Iranian opposition figure Reza Pahlavi says U.S. military intervention could save lives and urges President Donald Trump not to spend too long negotiating a nuclear deal with Tehran. The exiled son of Iran's former Shah tells Reuters he believes the clerical government is nearing collapse and says an attack could accelerate its fall. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is set to begin a 2-day trip to bolster ties with Slovakia and Hungary today, whose conservative leaders, often at odds with other European Union countries, have warm ties with President Donald Trump. Rubio is to discuss energy cooperation and bilateral issues, including NATO commitments. According to Australian government announcements, Australia will spend $2.76 billion to advance construction of a shipyard to support nuclear-powered submarines under the 2021 AUKUS Defence Pact with the United States and Britain. The agreement is Australia's largest ever defence investment. According to Taiwan Foreign Minister Ling Chia-lung, China is the real threat to regional security and is hypocritically claiming to defend UN principles of peace in response to remarks by Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi at the Munich Security Conference, as Wang Yi warned that some countries are trying to split Taiwan from China. Now we move on to Europe. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is set to begin a 2-day trip to bolster ties with Slovakia and Hungary, whose conservative leaders, often at odds with other European Union countries, have warm ties with President Donald Trump. According to the U.S. State Department, Rubio will use the trip to discuss energy cooperation and bilateral issues, including NATO commitments. Rubio, who in his dual role also serves as Trump's national security advisor, will meet in Bratislava with Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico, who visited Trump in Florida last month. The U.S. diplomat's trip follows his participation in the Munich Security Conference over the last few days. Now we welcome former Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev. He is a former diplomat, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much for joining us. Good to see you. Now, Ambassador, as you know, Rubio starts his trip today. What do you think is priority when he visits Slovakia and Hungary, these two countries in particular, this trip?
I think the priorities are going to be a mixed bag. Firstly, he would like to showcase that the United States has strong friends in the continent and within NATO and European Union. The Western and some of the Central European countries have increasingly had misgivings about United States posture on Greenland, as well as its negotiating tactics with regard to Ukraine-Russia crisis. They also don't like United States actoring them, as done last year by Vice President Vance, about having too many migrants, Europe losing its way, and European values being eroded, etc., etc. So he would like to shore up by producing some ventriloquists in Bratislava and in Budapest, who would stand by United States in general and Trump administration in particular. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador, for sharing that. And you know, as Slovakia and Hungary are seen as more aligned with Russia rather than their European not allies, but neighbors, how do you think this Russia's relationship with Slovakia and Hungary will be affecting the upcoming talks with Rubio?
That's a good and interesting question. Thank you. I think left to himself, President Trump also does not regard Mr. Putin as his adversary, as the national security document released in November says so. He has continued to procure uranium from Russia, despite thousands of sanctions on Moscow. So he is not particularly bothered about the two countries, Hungary and Slovakia, maintaining their old links with Moscow, buying gas from Russia, and being in touch with Mr. Putin in particular. He may like to use this visit to make them press Moscow to be more accommodating at the negotiating table. As you know, second round of talks between Moscow and Ukraine, mediated by Washington, is going to be taking place next week in Geneva. So intervention by Hungary and Slovakia with Moscow, he may hope, Mr. Rubio may hope to be able to swing a more flexible Moscow on the border adjustments and ceasefire in Ukraine.
Building on that, as you know, a second round is soon indeed. So, what's the from your analysis? What's the current trust level between these two countries towards U.S. mediation for Ukraine and Russia's war?
Well, Russia remains steadfast in its demands about Ukraine ceding territory in Donbas area, the three provinces that Russia claims to be part of Russia. And Ukraine continues to possess part of western areas of these provinces, and fighting has continued, albeit at a reduced attritional level. Secondly, I think as far as Ukraine is concerned, Ukraine has to depend on Europe as well as United States for good offices, for bolstering its defense forces, for economic sustenance. And that is where the rub lies. This seems to be eroding as far as Washington is concerned. Mr. Trump has been swinging from one side to another side during the first year of his presidency. He has welcomed Putin for a summit in Alaska, has had difficult summits with Zelensky in White House in February, for example, where Mr. Zelensky was literally thrown out of the building without any ceremony. And later on, the The deal was signed to pledge Ukrainian natural resources against the armed aid given already by United States. And United States has demurred about sharing intelligence and so on, alarming Ukrainians who have been at Europe's doorstep. Europeans don't want Zelensky to lose to Russia, and therefore they have upped the ante. As Munich Security Conference earlier this week showed, Mr. Zelensky pleaded for sustaining support and pressing Moscow to adopt a more flexible line over negotiations.
Thank you very much.
Elsewhere.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Sachdev, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you. Now we move on to Nigeria. Gunmen have killed at least 30 people in dawn raids across 3 villages in northwestern Nigeria. The attackers shot or slit the throats of victims, set homes on fire, and abducted several people in Niger State. According to reports, the violence occurred near a site where over 100 people were killed in a similar attack earlier this month. The bandits targeted Tunga, Makeri, Konkoso, and Pissa, leading to an increasing death toll in the area. Authorities fear the toll could rise as reports from nearby villages remain unclear. Now we welcome back Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev. He's a former High Commissioner to Nigeria, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for staying with us. Now this unfortunate, very hasty crime, the scene has emerged from Nigeria. What more can you tell us about this, and also the location that this has happened or is happening?
State of Niger lies in the center of west of Nigeria. It's a fertile area and is populated by farmers, mostly growing various cash and cereal crops, as well as some fruit. At the same time, this is an area where grazers from north come down during the summer, which is now setting in, when the water scarcity in the north, Sahel region, makes grazing more difficult and sparse. So they come down with their thousands of herd to central Nigerian area, and that is where the clashes often occur excuse me, during the summer season, when the two sides, the farmers resist the grazers taking over their fields, etc.
Thank you very much.
That's what it seemed to be happening.
Ambassador, are you okay? Great. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for sharing that insight with us and staying with us on NewsX World. Now we move on to Epstein files. The Paris Prosecutor's Office has announced that the formation of a special team of magistrates to scrutinize evidence that may implicate French nationals in crimes committed by convicted child sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. According to reports, the special team was created to be able to extract any piece that could be usefully reused in a new investigative framework. It will also work closely with police and with prosecutors from the National Financial Crimes Unit. Now for this, we welcome Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at Hudson Institute, joins us live from Tokyo. Thank you very much, Dr. Nagao, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now looking at this, how significant would the cooperation be, in Paris, among the prosecutors, and what can we expect to come out from this cooperation?
Epstein's connection is very global, especially in the Western countries. So that's why not only the United States, but also the British, Norway, now France need to investigate themselves. But investigate agency is based on the national government, which is each country has its investigation sector, and so globally they need to cooperate to deal with this Epstein crime. And because the huge amount of the cases Epstein has already committed, so that's why the investigation demand very long time, and one by one they're checking and publishing the huge amount of the document and the pictures without identify who is the victim. So that's why the process demand long time, and one by one it has revealing. So one document revealed, another document revealed, every time this incident is escalating to be big scandal. And that's why it is very important scandal. That's why France also realized this seriousness and formed this team to investigate. So it is expected that this will be the more bigger scandal in the near future, and that is not good, but at the same time, this is we need to deal with, everyone need to deal with, I think.
Yes, thank you for highlighting that. And indeed, the Epstein connection is global. We have seen a lot of French political elites and elites' names come up in the recent released Epstein files, including the former culture minister's close relationship and yes, some more elites. So what did the Epstein files reveal about, the financial links, correspondence, and how are prosecutors assessing whether any laws were violated, in particular to French elites' involvement in this?
Yes, that is also the part of the investigation, because how to identify the human-human connection is indeed very difficult. For example, someone met in the station, is this a human connection? Everyday people met many people. But view from the picture, view from the route they're walking, they are meeting many people, that is true. So that's why one by one they are checking how deep relations they have. Even if the deep relations, did they know the crime and Epstein committed, or they are the perpetrator of the big Epstein's crime. So these are one by one they need to check. But many people are improving, and so that's why identification itself is demanding a long time. That is the current situation. So not only just investigation team in the United States, but also many countries should improve. But if the many countries improve, how to coordinate is a matter, and how to publish is a matter, because how to protect the survivors, victims, that is also the matter.
Yes, indeed. It's very difficult and challenging to prove human-to-human relations, like you mentioned, and also while protecting the victims and their identity is critical. So what other political pressures could French government face in balancing transparency with victim privacy while pursuing full disclosure of and accountability of Epstein's network and the associates in terms of French associates?
Yes, of course, protecting the victims, the survivors, that is one thing very important. But another thing is that this scandal is not just a crime. This is related with secret information of the nations. And in this case, not only the United States, but also British, but also the Norway, but also France. These countries, they have the secret information, but there's a possibility to reveal and sell. That is very important scandal. So that's why they are, this is very big issue. So that's why they should act carefully. And so not only protecting the victims, but that they should act carefully, that is true, but at the same time, because of the sensitivity of the information they share, that is also the factor the investigating team need to be careful. So there's a possibility someone vital for their country is related to this crime, could happen, and at the same time, it could be the international problem between the nation versus nation. That is also possible to occur.
Yes, and as you rightfully highlighted, that Epstein connection is indeed global. What could be the answers which could remain unanswered if these countries internationally don't cooperate? And France does their own investigation, and then US does their own.
Of course, the unclear area is who involved this crime is indeed unclear. Epstein, of course, but if the Epstein has sensitive information and share with others, that who is that others is a matter. There is a possibility that others has the interest to get this information. So for example, the investigation in Poland focusing on Russia's involvement. In British also, they also focusing on Russia, because Russia and Western countries spy game, for a long time they have fought in many places in the world, especially in Europe. This is a big issue. And but Epstein also used many Russian ladies, and in this case, it is just survivor victim or something, or there is a possibility the national level support exists, and so this is one kind of the spy game between two, and Epstein's crime is related with this. If this is happening, this is a government versus government problem. So that's why how big the size of the crime has happened itself is a very important issue in this case. So investigators of the US, France, Poland, or British, everyone faced very difficulty because this is very big crime. That is the current situation. But at the same time, without publishing the certain investigation report, this kind of the image itself is baseless. So that's why people can expect it could be the big problem, big scandal. That is true. But at the same time, still, this is under investigation. We should not forget this fact. So that's why we need to wait in this case, because the size of the crime, it could be big, but at the same time, this is still image.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Dr. Nagao, for sharing that timely insight with us on this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Now we move on to our next news. Storm Nils, which lashed southwest France over the past 2 days, has caused severe flooding, leaving vast areas underwater. The Garonne River overflowed, inundating residential areas in Tonnes, while the country remains on high alert. The storm has claimed a second life, and a red alert remains in place for flooding along the Garonne River. France's flood alert system has been working tirelessly, with the nation's alert levels hitting unprecedented numbers. According to Lucie Chardorn-Faken, the head of France's flood alert agency, Vigicruise, the country has been on constant alert for the past month. The record-breaking rains have left the soil saturated, leading to an unprecedented flood response. Now we move on to tech news. Uber is set to expand its delivery business into 7 new European countries this year, including the Czech Republic, Greece, and Romania. The The move is expected to generate an additional $1 billion in gross bookings over the next 3 years. The expansion will also include markets like Austria, Denmark, Finland, and Norway. Uber's global head of delivery, Susan Anderson, has stated that the company aims to raise the bar and provide better value across the sector. This expansion comes just after Uber agreed to acquire the delivery arm of Turkish company Getir, expanding its presence in Turkey as well. Now we move on to Asia. Taiwan's Foreign Minister Ling Chia-lung has sharply criticized China's stance on security, accusing Beijing of hypocrisy in its claims to uphold United Nations principles of peace. Lin's remarks come in response to Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi's comments at the Munich Security Conference, where Wang has warned against efforts to split Taiwan from China and accused Japan of stoking tensions over the island. In a statement, Lin has emphasized that Taiwan's sovereignty has never belonged to the People's Republic of China, whether under historical facts, objective reality, or international law. Lin has further rebuked China for its actions, stating that while Wang boasts of adhering to the UN Charter, China's military provocations and violations of UN principles, including the threat of force, exposes its hegemonic behavior. While China's military has regularly staged exercises near Taiwan, with the latest round of mass war games conducted in December, Taiwan, which views itself as a self-governed democracy, rejects China's claims, stating that Taiwan's sovereignty should be determined by its people, not Beijing. Taiwan's position also counters China's argument that the island was returned to Chinese rule at the end of World War II. Now we move on to Mexico. Massive protests have broken out in Zacatecas, City of Mexico, after workers at a silver mine owned by Canada's Vizsla Silver Corp were kidnapped and killed. People from multiple age groups marched holding banners to mourn the victims and speak out against extortion. Authorities found the bodies of 10 victims in Sinaloa and believe that they may have been mistaken for members of a rival gang. According to reports, the protests ended at the municipal palace, where people demanded the government to take sincere action against the violence.
Pues el objetivo es levantar la voz por la paz, por seguridad principalmente.
Ya se vale, porque somos gente trabajadora, somos gente honesta, somos gente derecha. Aquí estamos manifestándonos de una manera silenciosa, pacífica y luchando por la justicia de todos.
That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news and updates from around the world.
In the midst of this, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Trending Tech on NewsX World, where we bring you the latest tech breakthroughs and trends from around the globe. As the entertainment and social media industries rapidly evolve, artificial intelligence technology is taking center stage, reshaping everything from film production to influencer marketing. With major players like Amazon, MGM Studios, Disney, Warner Music and YouTube leading the charge, AI is not only transforming content creation, but also opening new opportunities and challenges across global markets. From virtual influencers to AI-generated music, the impact of these advancements is felt everywhere. They are transforming everything from traditional TV markets to the rise of digital platforms. Today, we take a closer look at the latest developments and their implications for the industry. To discuss this and more, joining us now is Darren Nino Di Stefano, a senior industry consultant in entertainment and social media. He has managed portfolios for major brands and broadcasters working on content and distribution strategies for emerging platforms. Thank you very much for joining us, Darren. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks for having me.
Let's get straight into this. With Amazon MGM Studios launching a dedicated AI unit for film and TV production, how do you see this impacting content workflows and spending in markets like India's TV sector, which generated $7.4 billion in FY25?
Well, MGM Studios, which is actually owned by Amazon, has recently launched a unit dedicated for AI. The objective is to mainly come up with tools for film and TV production, ultimately to save costs. So this was already seen in House of David, which is one of their TV shows, and they used AI to generate a battle scene, for example. But when it comes to India and the billions made, when it comes to local and original content, it will really get these creatives to assess all parts and phases of the production, whether it's the pre-production side, such as storyboarding, creating virtual sets, to even the virtual, special effects during post. So far, Amazon is seeing efficiencies in reduction of timelines to 20 to 25%. And this is great news for shows that require tight turnaround, for example. As for the mid-sized sort of production houses or the indie producers, this is great in creating those kind of epic scenes that are similar to like Dune or Game of Thrones. And it can now be done at a fraction of the cost.
Wow. And moving on to further news, and of course the Disney $1 billion deal with OpenAI. This licenses over 200 characters from the studio's portfolio, including icons like Mickey Mouse and Frozen. This raises questions on AI-generated content. What opportunities and risks does this present for entertainment giants engaging in global audiences?
Well, they've basically entered into a 3-year agreement with each other. And they are bringing popular characters from Disney's IP to Sora's artificial intelligence video generator by OpenAI, and who are the owners of ChatGPT. Disney want to gain a bit of an oversight, almost forming a committee between these two parties to ensure that the stuff is brand safe. But they also want to do that while harnessing audience interaction, navigating or circumventing through those ethics and IP issues. Risk-wise, it could potentially damage the brand if the content that's being created spreads at a rate that Disney can't control. And we've already seen this with some of the past incidents that have happened when it came to crisis management. As far as opportunities go, and for those kind of giant players, entertainment giants like Disney can curate sort of AI videos for their own and operated platforms like Disney Plus, for example. So they can test new stories, they can test new characters, and pass that on as feedback with their content commissioners. And this will now include a layer of like fan-generated content, which can ultimately boost engagement and target, say, younger audiences or global audiences who are savvy on social media.
And moving on once again, Darren, the settlement between Warner Music Group and Suno AI, allowing licensed use of artists' voices and catalogues for generative models in 2026. This opens doors for AI in music creation. How might this influence partnerships and revenue streams in media or marketing agencies?
Well, Warner Music seemed to have come to a settlement with Suno AI, which was once a lawsuit late last year and has now become more of a partnership or a strategic, venture. So the Suno platform, for those who don't know, is primarily used for music creation, where users can create AI music. And Suno, as now with this platform, now get access to the record label's catalog. So these includes artists like Ed Sheeran, Bruno Mars, Charlie XCX. So media marketing agencies could potentially partner with the AI platforms directly for enterprise solutions, as opposed to the traditional route, which is going to the record labels when commercialized when licensing commercialized tracks, for example. This is definitely a big win for agencies, like gaining access to cheaper content that sounds similar to those artists, and they are potentially royalty free.
There are AI native socials like Meta, Vibes, and OpenAI's Sora is reshaping these social networking platforms. As a senior growth director with a track record in social marketing, what strategies would you recommend for products and brands in order to stay relevant and survive?
Well, AI social networks are growing on the rise, putting pressure for traditional players like Meta, who owns Facebook and WhatsApp. And as you can see, it has resulted to Meta creating Vibes. And this is no shock to Meta, as they once created Threads to rival X when Elon Musk took over. And with these kind of new platforms, the kind of point of difference will vary on whether it's the feature, the functionality, or the overall purpose. So it kind of varies platform to platform. Some of them are focusing on the generative feed aspects, while others might prioritize image sharing as their value proposition to rival traditional apps. When it comes to brands and products, they will have a social playbook which will operates as their brand Bible, and it's to determine the right strategy and format for social media. So they just need to make sure that the playbooks are updated, and are they targeting the right audience and the right platform, whether it's the current ones or the new ones. This also presents an opportunity for servicing markets like Korea and India, and they're heavily reliant on local specialty social networking platforms as well.
Yes, and Darren, virtual or AI influencers like Grammy Spills and Lil Maquila continually become a growing trend on social media, sparking viral fascination, but also skepticism around authenticity in brand deals. So far, does this insight align with your forecast and predictions in influencer marketing campaigns, particularly impacting real human creators and their income streams?
Well, there are influencers now on social media, and they are so realistic, and they're actually made with AI. So Granny Spills has exploded on TikTok with 400,000 and 1 million Instagram followers, and that's just within weeks. Little Michaela, which when I was working once for a social media agency, we actually did a partnership with her because she was one of the early pioneers, and she's kind of been consistent with 2.5 million followers on Instagram. Brand deals that she's done so far has been brands like Prada and Dior, so they're quite realistic and they're definitely happening. And she has been reportedly to be earning $73,000 per post, so that's pretty crazy. While it's inevitable, it has been kind of a trend that's that has people that everyone has been predicting, and it is kind of slowly on the rise. But I think it's human creators are the ones that would probably hold most of the marketing budget or the social media sort of advertising spend. So they still kind of hold the chunk of it. Where the pressure might happen is it might put pressure with nano or micro influencers who are pretty much on the lower tier when it comes to income earning. And it will primarily be due to cost. So it'll probably be them who might be impacted versus the displacement of the topper talent.
And finally, YouTube's recent 2026 vision was announced by CEO Neil Mohan. It emphasizes AI tools being the key focus, blurring the lines between AI and user-generated assets. Whether you're a global production house or an aspiring creator, what are some of the best practices in managing change driven by AI, particularly in content production and creative workflows?
Yeah, so the CEO of YouTube recently made an announcement as part of their all hands, sharing their priorities in 2026, and the focus will be on AI tools, whether it's for creativity and content discovery, and this will allow creators to gain access to new features or faster production and recommendation sort of tactics. With Meta and TikTok aggressively pushing AI on their platforms, YouTube are desperately trying hard to reposition themselves as innovators in this space. And the key is for creators and producers to really treat AI as a new sort of production capability with clear accountability and what are those measurable outcomes. So best is to kind of have peak campaigns or production assets that's going to be core to your editorial content strategy and see how that might be impacted. So it's assessing those kind of new features once they get onboarded, and maybe select sort of assets that you think you can take a bit more of a creative risk and use and maximize and really value the AI features and see how it would operate using a test and learn environment, and it could be something that you can pioneer as well.
Darren Nino Di Stefano, thank you so much for joining us here on this episode of Trending Tech. Pleasure to have you.
Thanks.
Well, With that, it's a wrap on this episode of Trending Tech. For more tech updates and innovations, stay tuned on NewsX World.
In the midst of this, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.
Hello and welcome to Deep Dive on NewsX World. I'm Kriti Mehta. As the US hurtles towards the 2026 midterm elections, the nation is bracing for what many call the second battle of the ballot box. At the heart of this conflict is President Donald Trump's relentless push for the Save America Act, a piece of legislation that would mandate a rigid national photo ID requirement for all federal elections. To his supporters, it is the ultimate vestige of election integrity. To his detractors, it's a surgical, precision-engineered tool of voter suppression. But beyond the bipartisan ranting lies a calculation based on cooled